Okay, we're recording. Uh, Here we are, Coach John, Maryville Jiu-Jitsu co-owner and one of the assistant coaches, Wrestling Focus. Professor Joseph Watson, co-owner, Maryville Jiu-Jitsu, head instructor, and Professor Samuel Joseph, Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu out of Atlanta, Georgia, black belt head instructor.
What's up, guys? Love the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited about this. I met Coach or Professor Joseph, I guess it's been 5 or 6 years ago, and just been impressed with everything he's been doing at Buckhead Academy, Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu for all these years. So we wanted to have him on. We got some questions for him today.
Yeah, and I've seen him at tournaments, and that's what we were just talking about before we recorded here. And the Atlanta Open is always one I've been going to, and man, I see his guys, like there's a ton of Buckhead people, and they're all like repping their brand and their gym and stuff, and it seems like their team is together, which is kind of like you see that a little bit, but not so much. So I'm excited to have this conversation as well because I want to create something similar to that. You know.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words. Stop calling me Professor Joseph, dude. Just call me Sam.
All right. We could do that. All right. Well, let me, based on that comment, Sam, give us a little bit of background, where you came from and your jiu-jitsu lineage and just how you got into jiu-jitsu.
Okay, awesome. And feel free to pop in and ask questions about anything as I go on. My students will tell you I'll talk. I talk at the end of every class, and I'm like, man, But I started jiu-jitsu in 98, and I started in Atlanta. And anybody who started jiu-jitsu back then, you had to be training with Jacare Cavalcante, the Alliance HQ at the time in Atlanta. There's an HQ in Atlanta, and then there's an HQ in Sao Paulo, and with Fabio, and then Paiva, Professor Paiva in Rio. But I started in Atlanta, and Jacare was great, man. And I was there for a little bit over a year. I got my blue belt there, and then I moved to the DC area. And back then, you were just happy to have jiu-jitsu where you moved. And I was more than lucky to have the Yamasaki Academy there. Under Mario Yamasaki at the time. Fernando came later, moved in, and then Francisco Neto as well. But I moved there as a blue belt, and it was awesome. They'd been they'd been established a little bit before Alliance had. So when I left Alliance Atlanta, we had only blue belts on the mat. Like back in the day, there were only blue belts, and we were like, man, blue belt's like a black belt. I fought MMA and won as a blue belt. You didn't see if somebody came in with a purple belt, man, you were like, they were doing magic stuff. You know what I mean? And jiu-jitsu was so closely tied to MMA back then. Like the only IBJJF tournament in the country was the PAN, and we didn't have the internet like we have it today. So like people were legendary. You'd hear about somebody and then maybe you'd see them once a year at the PAN. You'd have like your one shot to make your reputation. But anyway, So I moved there as a blue belt. And there were purple belts on the mat and different guys I met. It was awesome. And I got the rest of my belts from the Yamasakis. I'm a Yamasaki black belt. And it was awesome, man. But I started with Jacare, and then moved to – and Mario was there first, and then Fernando Yamasaki. They influenced me tremendously. And then Francisco Neto, who's like – I call him like the unofficial Yamasaki. Like he was there. He's one of the heads of the Yamasaki Academy. So it's the two brothers and then Francisco Neto. And no man has had more impact on my jiu-jitsu than Francisco Neto. He was the perfect, so Mario and Fernando were never there at the same time, right? So one of them was there, and he was like the perfect number two when he was there. You can't imagine somebody more loyal. You can't imagine, like, that's what you dream of. You know what I mean? And man, he has so much impact on me, and I credit him and the Yamasakis for that because that's the way he would want it, and they had a tremendous impact on me.
Did you have to adjust your style a lot going from like a Jacare to a Yamasaki?
It was a little different. Every academy, it's funny because if you ever watch that show Highlander,
mm-hmm.
All right, so you know how those of you who don't know, Highlander, 400-year-old immortal, and the immortals, they go around, they have swords, and they sense when they're near each other, and they always say there can be only one, and then they fight. And take somebody's head, you take their power. But Duncan MacLeod, the main guy, would travel around, and he would learn he would learn sword fighting from a samurai. Then he would learn like a Spanish style. He'd learn different things. And for me, like jujitsu is like that. You go to different academies, especially before the proliferation of techniques on the internet. Now if you do something, John, it's really good, man, like somebody puts it on the internet or you do it at a tournament, it's all over the world in like 2 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, back then, man, you had a little bit more time where you could take advantage of that stuff. Like Keenan would be able to live for years off of what he's doing with the lapel. Now, man, as soon as he does it, like people are deconstructing it and somebody else is posting how to do it,
Like
or
day
how to
trading
defend
now.
it.
You gotta like check it daily.
Yes. So back then, like different schools had different styles. So when I went from Alliance to Yamasaki, man, I did have to adjust a little bit, and I did learn. And then my job moved me. My job moved me to Florida when I was still a brown belt. And I got to train with Pablo Popovich for a year, right? And at that time, man, Pablo was, going back and forth, or he lost to Marcelo Garcia a couple times, and he finally beat him. And that's when I was
jacked. And he was jacked.
Oh, dude. And then, like, he looks like a Greek god, but, man, he was and his dad were fantastic, man. Great personality, great sense of humor. You'd think the guy would be a complete jerk, like looking like he does and being that good. Man, I can't say enough positive stuff about the way he carried
I'll buy his workout DVD any day, man. If he comes out with BJJ Fanatics workout DVD, I'm buying it.
He trained so hard, man. But he always trained like, he only commits no gi, but he trained with the gi, trained no gi. He was awesome. And then I got to spend a couple of years, and I got my black belt from the Yamasaki's, but I got to spend a couple of years with Sean Williams, black belt under Renzo Gracie. And he is a jiu-jitsu encyclopedia. He and Danaher came up together, and, people always talk about how great Danaher is. And I've never met John Danaher, but all I know is that I believe it because Sean Williams was like a jiu-jitsu encyclopedia. He's fantastic. And
he does the commentary for the IBJJFs, right? Like the Worlds and stuff like that.
Yeah, and man, like that's such a natural fit, man. Like, dude, if you have any question, like I tell my students all the time, and there's no ego here. If I had a question right now and Sean was visiting, man, I would sit him down and I would just ask him because I have no doubt he would have the answer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, some guys are like that in jiu-jitsu. They just know exactly. They've experienced it. They've seen it.
Yep.
They felt it.
Yep. And he had a way of – he's an encyclopedia, and that for me, that was his outstanding quality. And all my coaches, all the guys I mentioned, each had outstanding qualities. But from him, man, I saw the value of really embracing the technical side and falling in love with it, like constantly looking for answers, trying to better yourself and the value that could bring to your students.
Yeah. Man, you've been everywhere.
Yeah, kind of like Highlander.
Yeah. So how did Buckhead come about then?
All right, so I moved back to Atlanta for my job, and I was a black belt. And one of my really good friends, Paul Creighton, who's a black belt.
And what were you do? What was your job? You were.
I was in sales, and I was in sales leadership. So I saw.
Sales. Okay.
Yep.
I knew you were a writer, so.
Yeah, so a company called Intercall and Westco, and you know how we're on a Zoom conference now? We sold audio, web, and video conferencing, right? Okay. So when you were like, "Oh, we'll send you a link," I was like, "Yeah, man, I got it." So I moved here, and back then, man, I was able to, if I want to go to a tournament, I'd be like, I'll just buy a last-minute plane ticket. I could fly, I could do whatever, because I had a great job, things were going great. And I was thinking about changing jobs, and I was training at my buddy Paul's gym, Creighton MMA. He's a beautiful school in Swanee. And I was teaching there like one night a week, and then I was training there. And it's an incredible school. But anyway, I was training with my brother, Derek Cavani, and I said, man, I'm thinking about changing jobs. And he said, well, you could do that, or you could do something I think you'd be great at that I think you would actually love. You could start a school. And when he tells this story, 2 weeks later, I quit my job and I opened up like Buckhead Jiu-Jitsu with no students. So we had like, almost 4,000 square feet, no students. And I was just paying the bills out of my life savings. But it was a little bit more than that, maybe a month. And I did do that. And I started it with no students. And, And that was it, man. And that was 6 years ago.
Yeah. I think you had maybe been open for only less than a year when I met you, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a few months in, and you already had started to build that pretty great group of people in such a short time.
Yeah, I feel really blessed. Yeah, it was about that. I feel really blessed. I mean, I wouldn't have even found the place. My sister was looking at other places. My sister said, "You should go in this area," and I was like, "Huh?" I grew up in Georgia. I know it, and I drove by, and I was like, "Holy crap! I love this area." Went and talked to the landlord and moved in. And man, I feel really blessed that we just have great people in our community. People are always like, "Oh man, but the coach and this or that." Like, dude, I'm just a voice, like one voice. It'd be like, going to the bathroom in the wind, man. Like, you have to have people, that buy into what you're doing, or else it won't take. Like, I could have the best seed in the world, but if I try to plant it on concrete, nothing's gonna happen. You have to plant it in fertile ground. And man, the people that I have in the gym, and they're just multiplying in terms of what they believe in. Like, jiu-jitsu is an individual sport, but it's also a team sport. And when you truly embrace that, then man, like, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats. Man, people will like lift each other up, man, and carry each other up. And that's what I see in our community, man. And I accredit that to the people, at the gym. So yeah, it's pretty. I love what I do.
Yeah, and you're 6 years in now, right? So,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.